Well met, lords and ladies, Jacob Butter speaking, and a warm welcome to this week's Walking Wednesday. I'm back in the UK, but not in my usual location. I am in Ashford today, and what the heck am I doing here, you may ask? Well, that's a tale all to itself. But first of all, I do have a little bit of another small story. Unlike last week, the story is actually small in comparison to get through first. So, to begin with, cast your eyes back to Galicia. I've got another police story to tell. And this one is, once again, proof to me that that Galician police officers are some of the chillest people that you will ever meet. I guess because there are quite a few very strange crime cases in Galicia, so they're used to very extreme situations, and therefore, you know, for most other people just trying to get by in the world, they're perfectly fine with you. I don't know, but that's my deduction from that. So what actually happened was, I believe this was actually on our way to the airport to fly back, although it could have been a shopping trip. I don't remember exactly. But yeah, the point is that, you know, with all four of us were there, myself, my parents, and my aunt, and we basically found that there were, you know, a couple of police cars that were, you know, stopping everyone. So we basically, you know, pulled over into the side, and then, you know, parked behind one of the cars that I think was just a random parked car, really. And while it was going on, there was a man ahead of us going in the opposite direction, and he actually was getting breathalyzed. So, you know, we thought, okay, fine, all right, say some sort of alcohol control, I suppose. You know, either give them some room or, you know, do as they say. And then the person approached the car and you know, talked to my mum, because she was the one driving at the time. And then said, "Hola, control de alcoholemia," and then she said, "De qué?" And we said, "De alcoholemia." And then, but at the same time, because whenever my parents speak, they have a much thicker English accent than I do. So then the police officer immediately switches and says alcohol control. So, you know, and then he asks in English, you know, have you had anything today? And bear in mind, this was I think somewhere between the times of like maybe like 9 and 10 in the morning, possibly 11. Again, don't remember the exact details. So the answer was, of course, no. And so my mum just calmly responded, no. And then he said, oh, okay, move along then. Which says to me one of two things. One, either the guy who got breathalyzed earlier seemed more suspicious. My mum suspects that because she didn't panic at the time, you know, she was in the clear, versus the other guy, whose word was not trusted. Or alternatively, the guy had been drinking that early, but he was okay to continue. He wasn't, you know, over the limit. So one or the other. Or I guess potentially because I don't know. I guess my mum just didn't seem suspicious, which, fair enough. She's not a particularly suspicious individual, so there you go, I suppose. So yeah, that was just a random experience there. It kind of felt a little bit like you know the scene in Star Wars: A New Hope where you know, these are the droids you're looking for. There's not the droids we're looking for. Move along, you know, that kind of thing. basically felt like that, minus the Jedi mind trick that I saw anyway. So yeah, that's just a fun, you know, warm-up thing. Why am I in Ashford? Back to what the topic is. Well, one thing that you know, is immediately I had to, you know, get a move on doing after coming back from, you know, that particular trip, was prepare for the next. Not that we haven't done that already, but remember how, you know, there's most years there's a you know, there's some sort of you know, excursion of some kind that my friends from Spain organize, and that's, you know, become our annual tradition. Most of the time we go to different European countries because, you know, they, as the citizens of an intelligence country that did decide to stay in the EU, get discounts for doing so. So it was convenient for them. Because of one of the friend group's new job, and he's the one who tends to organize these particular things, he's very keen to spend his now much more substantial salary and savings on a trip to somewhere much more remote for us, and a little bit more of a trek to get to, I suppose. So we're going to Peru. There's not really a good way that I can cross there, so I'm just going to go back where I came from. Yeah, so as a result of that, one thing that we didn't really account for mostly was travel vaccinations, because, you know, going to such a different region to what any of us are used to, that's one thing that, you know, in the realms of, you know, making sure that we have the proper visas that we would need, you know, travel insurance that covers other places aside from Europe and whatever, you know, all of that, it basically, for the most part, slipped our minds. So you might be thinking, oh, but Jacob, there's not enough time, you know, most vaccines take 2 weeks to get effective. Well, look, it's better than nothing, okay? It's better than nothing, and you know, I think it's worth it in general. So, you know, basically, like the day we got back, the day after we got back, actually, we had a consultation booked in, and, you know, very nice man at the pharmacy, you know, who walked us through. Actually, you know, even before that, back in Galicia, we looked into certain things where, you know, he said, okay, well, you know, which vaccines do you have? Because basically, if you're on the NHS system, you can you can basically, like, you know, you have easy access to whatever is on your record under immunizations. So, you know, I was scrolling through, you know, said, oh, they say you should get like this vaccine. It's like, do you have that one? Yep, got that one. Have you got this one? No, I've not got that one. Basically doing that. It was like, oh, have you got this one? I did get that one, but it was a long time ago. Is that still in effect? No. Okay, fine. So that kind of thing, basically. Turns out, despite the fact that we had a solid plan going forward, and I could have very easily emailed them, I was talked out of it, and it was recommended to give them a call instead once we got back, which, you know, did set me back by a couple of days, but by that time, that's when the consultation happened. As it turns out, keeping the consultation open ended up being a good thing, because the guy actually walked us through a few suggestions that we actually were not aware of by doing independent research. And because of that, you know, we had a solid plan go ahead. It's like, okay, well, those two, one of them, like, as we thought, was not in effect. The other one we knew we were going to need. And it's also recommended, like, another one that I did actually have and would still have been in effect, but you know, eventually I was convinced that, well, actually it was a bit of a debate back and forth. So, like, oh, you know, I've got this immunization, why go through an extra jab? The guy even said, save yourself a jab if you can. But he also mentioned how the booster that I would get was even better than the junior version that I would have gotten all the way back in 2003. So, which would still have been okay, but you know, if something is better, why not? That way I'm covered far into the future. So yeah, so eventually, because of that, that's what swayed me towards, yeah, you know what, fine, I'll get it, and that's why I'm fine with my left hand this time, because my right arm is is heavy with 2 jabs versus my left, which only has 1. So if you start to see the camera slowly panning down like that, that's why. I'm doing my best of what I can here. So that was one thing that we got sorted today, because the consultation happened, then we came back today and got that done. And then it turns out there was actually one particular thing, and this one I'll mention because I didn't end up getting it in the end or whatever, so it's not really pertinent information. I suppose it's there are some areas of Peru that where you are at high risk of yellow fever. So, with that in mind, one of these areas, which by the way, I'm convinced my mum doesn't know the scope of where we're actually going, because she keeps on making mentioning limited areas before I can actually get a chance, and then I have to say no, actually we're doing this as well. So good thing that I mentioned that, because then the guy said during the consult, he said, okay, well is it the city or is it the region? Because the region that you might be going to, there are some areas of risk. The city, not so much. It was like, well, unfortunately, I don't know, because it doesn't say. So I was supposed to inquire about that, and admittedly, I forgot to do that when I got back, because I was filling in the form, and then I, carried on with other stuff. So I acquired that today, and basically, he gave us the contacts after I got the other jabs I was supposed to from him, and basically we're off on our way to London, of all places, which is the only area that would largely book an appointment, because the other places were out of stock. So there we are on the way to London, and it takes quite a while to get there, so we would get there just around closing time, theoretically. So, because of that, I very quickly jotted down a link that, again, the guy from the pharmacy mentioned beforehand, and was trying to look through on my phone. At the same time as updating several different people for various reasons, and I was about to alert the D&D group, Mistress of Occulta, because we've got another episode coming out tonight. Plug. So I was like, oh well, I'm going to get back after the allotted time. Basically, that's not going to be good, because again, without me, there's a lot of required setup, basically. So because of that, I needed to. I need to make sure they knew. And I was like, okay, send me back onto something. But it turns out, while I was doing that, messaging the other friend group, because I said, okay, I'm going to leave the link here, but I need to find if the area is affected or not. Turns out, while I was in the middle of messaging different people, messaging my dad, saying what the plan was, messaging this person, messaging the other, one of the other people, came into the rescue and said, oh, well, it turns out the area that we're going to is this red circle here from the image that you were trying to find, which, by the way, I didn't actually mention how to access the image. So he just found that on his own completely and came in clutch, basically. So he said, okay, we're not going to the area that is affected by yellow fever. And by that point, we were 10 minutes into the hour-plus drive, not to specify too much, obviously, that we would have, that we were going to undergo. But because it was a lifetime vaccine that I would be able to get and would have served me for however long it may have been, well, as in like the rest of my life, basically, we decided to keep going. And we were continuing to go until about 10 minutes after that, when I got a call from a number from London. It could have been spam, but it turns out it was their answering machine, not answering machine, no, their answer system. And they contacted me and they said, oh, well, it turns out you booked this appointment, we're out of stock. Sorry about that. Could you rebook? And then I had to explain, oh, well, it turns out I might not even need to go at all because of this, that, and the other. And also it's a bit of a drive, so we might find somewhere else. You know, so again, you know, they said, okay, well, thank you very much. You know, you could book for these times, we can get them in or not. And that was that basically. I don't think we're going to end up doing that beforehand, because if we're not going to the areas of risk, then I don't see much of a point. So there we go. But because we're on the way back, another thing that the guy mentioned was the possibility of acquiring altitude sickness tablets. So then suddenly I had to check the, again, vague itinerary to see the maximum altitude that would be required, because this doctor, who is a colleague of the other one, even though it's you know, here in Ashford, thus we are here, answering the question from earlier, even though that was the case, he didn't want to, you know, give me any you know, tablets that I don't need, because that would be unethical, and you know, which is completely fair enough. And so, you know, to check those different things. Again, the itinerary doesn't mention the altitudes, but one of my other friends did say, you know, that this would be an area of risk, and I'm not sure yet, because I asked him before I started filming if we were going to go to the top of this particular mountain that would exceed the altitude significantly, thereby requiring those tablets to begin with. So once I see that response, we'll find out if this trip was indeed required or not, because they basically would have been closed by now. So essentially, we have done most of this trek for nothing, aside from an admittedly picturesque location for the one walking Wednesday I'll be doing before going to yet another international destination. Hooray! So, based on all of that, that's where we are right now. And I think it should be time for me to get back, because I essentially left my mum in a car park that is somewhere else. And I certainly can't drive today with my arms being as they are. And I want to stop filming in general to get the blood flow going and keep them rested. Make sure that I don't feel too many pangs and pains for tonight's D&D session. So with that in mind, I'm going to sign off for right now. So please leave a like or dislike, because your opinion matters. Subscribe to us already. And on that note, until next time, farewell.